What's up, guys? D-Rock1992 here. For this next video, I'm going to be reviewing the movie Jack. For those of you who don't know, Jack is a movie that came out in 1996, and it stars one of my favorite comedians of all time, Robin Williams. It also stars Jennifer Lopez, Diane Lane, Bill Cosby's in this movie. Fran Dresher from the Nanny popularity, the Nanny sitcom. She's in this movie. And those are really the top actors and actresses that I know by name that are in this movie. But anyway, Jack has a 17% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. I think it was a better movie than 17%. And I'll get into that with my review. But anyway, Jack deals with a boy named Jack, played by Robin Williams, who is, well, first of all, Jack's mother and father are at a costume party at the beginning of this film when Jack's mother suddenly goes into labor. They go to the hospital, and Jack is born. He comes out all right. He's perfectly healthy, but he's 10 weeks ahead. But he's born in the 10th week of his mother's pregnancy. So then later on, it is determined that Jack is growing rapidly. I mean, he's healthy. He's a healthy young baby, but he's growing fast. In fact, he's growing 4 times the normal rate that normal babies, typical babies go through. So this centers around him being a 10-year-old in a 40-year-old's body, basically, but he's really 10. I think that's a very neat plot line. I think that's a very neat plot for sure. It's unique. But what Jack actually has is this syndrome called Werner Syndrome. It's where a child grows faster than expected. He grows up faster than expected at a pretty fast-paced rate. And in this movie, Jack grows at 4 times the normal rate. So anyway, the next part of the movie really centers on Jack's a very secluded man, or secluded child. His parents are afraid of exposing him to a lot of bullying and things like that because some people just aren't very accepting. Which makes sense, but eventually Jack goes to school. He has a tutor named Mr. Woodruff, voiced by Bill Cosby. Pretty good in this movie. And he's kind of the voice of reason. And he convinces Jack's parents to let him go to school. So Jack's parents say yes. They bring him over to school. And at first, it's like he can't fit in. I mean, they think he's a 40-year-old man. I mean, he's a 10-year-old stuck in a 40-year-old's body, essentially held back like 20, 25 years. I mean, and it's understandable how the kids, ridicule him because of that. Certainly. But a way that he does fit in, there's this little kid, I forget who the main kid, the actual kid who plays in this movie, I forget his name, the actor's name who played him, he sees eventually that Jack has a big height advantage over him. And he eventually convinces his basketball team, to ask Jack to play with them against these other kids that they keep playing at, but they lose to. So Jack gets into the game, and he thoroughly dominates. I mean, he's like Shaq to these kids. And that's a reference that they make. It's just like Shaq, basically. Jack in school has the support of his teacher. I forget the character's name, but the teacher is played by Jennifer Lopez. And they have a good relationship, those two. And then Jack really gets into this kid's group of friends, and they're really great friends. You know, they do a lot of crazy stuff and things like that. And it's a lot of fun, for sure. But then he runs into some problems with basically what happens is he kind of falls in a certain part of this movie. He kind of has what could be called a bit of a heart attack, stress attack, panic attack, something like that. And he realizes that, they all realize that he's growing at 4 times the normal rate, so he is going to die sooner than other people. His parents are really freaked out about this, so they take him out of school. And actually, this is after his heart kind of gets broken a little bit, because he asks his teacher on a date, basically. You look at this character, and it's like, you look at him, and it's like, that's acceptable. Him and, Jennifer Lopez's character going out. But it's the whole 10-year-old trapped in a 40-year-old body thing. So Jennifer Lopez's character rejects him, and he's not very happy about it. And then that's when he gets the panic attack type thing. And that's when his parents withdraw him out of school. And he's depressed because of it. Eventually, though, helped out by his friends come along. Everybody in the school, it seems like, or everybody in Jennifer Lopez's character's classroom, come out and they beg Jack's mother to let him come out and play. And eventually Jack goes back to school, and eventually Jack goes back to school, and he gets back to being happy with his friends. I think he definitely gets back to being happy with his friends. Because that's what he really wants. He wants to be accepted. And he was by that group of friends, which is a pretty heartwarming thing, really. Here's a child trapped in a man's body who's very different than the other kids, but some of the other kids are embracing him. So that is definitely heartwarming in itself right there. But anyway, the real trouble comes in when he goes to a nightclub where he runs away from home. I kind of forget in this movie why he did it. I kind of forget how he did it. It might have been related to the whole school thing, something like that. So basically, he runs away from home, and he goes to this nightclub where there's that kid who was the first one to accept Jack. His mother, played by Fran Drescher, she really takes a liking to Jack earlier in the film after Jack impersonates the kid's principal to kind of tell Fran Drescher's character, your kid is doing good in school, when in reality, the kid wasn't doing well in school at all. He was failing. But anyway, he meets up with Fran Drescher's character at this nightclub, and it's good. They're having a good time, but then this jerk of a guy, I think Fran Drescher's character's boyfriend, antagonizes him a bit, or they kind of both antagonize each other. They get in a fight. Jack and the guy are arrested. Fran Drescher's character posts bail and brings him back home. And it's, I mean, the story goes, I mean, he's concerned about his life because this kid who's in a man's body grows at 4 times the normal rate. So like I said before, he's going to die sooner than expected. You know? He's not going to live to a very old age. And at the end of the film actually, it's about 10 years later or so. So he's 20 years old. Essentially, he's somewhere around 17 to 20 years old. And at this time, he's in his 70s or 80s because he grows at 4 times the normal rate. And he's named the valedictorian of his class, which I think is really cool. And he gives out a speech, a heartfelt speech about basically life is short, do what makes you happy, that kind of thing. And then the movie pretty much ends with him and his friends going out and having fun, essentially. So, this movie, it's about time I get to the review, definitely. There are a few parts that I kind of hazy. I watched it probably a couple days ago. And, so, this movie, to me, lacked in the comedy. I was disappointed with the way, not a lot of comedy was presented in this. I think the director, by the way, is Francis Ford Coppola, better known for his work with the Godfather series, all 3 Godfather movies. So this is a pretty big departure. This is different than The Godfather, for sure. But I think what they were trying to go with in this movie was a mixture of comedy and drama. Jack does its part with the drama. You know, it's a heartfelt story, certainly, but I was disappointed by the lack of comedy. It just wasn't a whole lot to really get into. You know, they didn't put a lot of comedy in there for Robin Williams and Jack. You know, it was disappointing. That being said, I would give this a 3 out of 5 stars. The comedy wasn't quite there, but the drama more than makes up for it in the end. And that's my movie review. Or actually, before I go, Robin Williams, a great performance, a Robin Williams-esque performance. The other characters, Jennifer Lopez was alright. Diane Lane was alright. Bill Cosby was alright. Fran Drescher was solid. You know, nobody really memorable outside of Robin Williams and his character, but the drama was good. Again, I give it a 3 out of 5 stars. And now this is the end of my review. D-Rock 1992, out.